I don't even know where to start.
It's awesome to sit next to you and actually have this meeting. So, and unfortunately, we apologize that we had some recording issues, couldn't get that done. So you don't get to have us live. It's pre-recorded, but which just means we can edit out all the weird stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Master Your Craft Action Series number 8, Landing the Listing. The third part in what it is a 3-part series. Although I did have the idea of potentially having a 4th part based on some stuff that you put together for the office meeting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk just specifically about what to do when you show up at the door, right? The process of how we run that. I always call it like the show flow, how we go through the process, what we do with the order we do it, and things like that. So, oops, switch to the screen. Again, all of these particular topics that we go through, the recordings are available. We'll make sure you have all of those. I think it's one of those things that as you have one particular piece, that sometimes the first piece in the series or a different piece, you're going to have new information. So if you have questions about this as we go through, please reach out to one of us. I love to talk about this stuff. As I often say, love to help you guys refine your process. So the big show, we show up at the door. What do we do? And in our previous session, we talked about, this idea of confirming. We just talked about pricing, putting together the CMA and all of that. So we're not going to go into that, but I'll show you where that fits in this process. What we're going to talk today about is the tour of the home, what we call the mic drop pages, presenting the marketing, and that third piece to me is the initial market position or the pricing. I feel, and love to hear your experience about this. This to me is about a 45-minute process, the system and the strategy, right? It's 15 minutes for the tour, 15 minutes for the marketing, 15 minutes for the price, and then of course, getting the contract signed, which I believe if you do all these things well, that really becomes sort of a non-conversation. It's like, sure. Now, one of the things that I like to talk about is we want to make sure we package as much time as we need for that conversation. But I think it's important to give your clients some clarity on this, and I'll sort of talk about this here. Couple of day or so before the meeting, text message, however you want to do. I love to confirm the appointment. Just sort of sets the tone. It's this nice reminder. And really everything we do in this process, even from the preliminary marketing assessment, all of these steps are really articulating your character and your competence, how you work. And I think we undersell all those little things that we have in conversations, and you're like, oh, that's sending a message of how I run my business. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
Dealing with a whole school of kids, I'm sure that was its own, right? Like they pick up on all those things. And I confirm and clarify. I think when we give people clarification and expectation, they understand this process, right? We do listing presentations every day, all day long, right? The client only does one every 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years. So when we tell them, hey, Jen, this process, my system, my strategy, I need about 45 minutes to sort of go through it and sort of give you the overview and answer your questions. And then, here's the thing, I'll be here as long as you need, but I need that 45 minutes to sort of go through. And what we do is we set that expectation that they know when you show up, you're going to take charge, right? And, speaking of working with a bunch of kids, if you don't tell them what to do, they're going to make their own decision.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Brian Buffini says, never show up with both arms the same length. And basically all that to say, he loves to show up with something. Right, and whether it's a gift or something like that, I think this is one of those, I'll say, underused little pieces. It's just a psychological nuance. And I remember when I had the first listing sort of thing that we did, that I was on the client side, and the agent showed up with a dinosaur coloring book for Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you might as well just jump to the contract right now and let's just sign it. Like, because to me, that just conveys this idea that they're paying attention to all the little details, right? Maybe it's a bottle of wine, maybe it's something for the dogs. Like, what that little piece that you pick up on, I think it's that nice little gift, right? Also, make sure you've got duplicates of everything that you dropped off, referencing all the way back to the preliminary marketing assessment, the big folders, right? Which, by the way, you should always have backup copies anyway. Make sure to do those little things, right? Confirm, set the tone for 45 minutes, bring a little gift if you can, and make sure you've got backups of everything going in, you know. Some agents talk about listening to like a power ballad in the car and getting in the zone. I mean, I'm
just got to get in the zone.
I'm all about that idea anyway. So,
right.
you know, maybe you've got like a little game plan. We show up on time, we knock on the door, and that sort of takes us to, you know, that moment. And, you know, for newer agents out there, it's a stressful thing. Like, there's a lot of emotion involved. You're sort of driving all the process, and you don't know what to expect. And, you know, the best advice here is just practice, right? Just do it as often as you can. Role play. Find someone in the office that's like, hey, let's go through this process. So here's sort of the path and process I like to go through. So, excuse me, I say the 80-20 rule in it, you know, the Pareto principle, but here's what the language that I say, right? When Jen opens the door, I'm like, hey, Jen, good to see you. Still want to make sure we're good for the next 45 minutes. I'll take as long as you need, but and you know, we get that initial buy-in. Right. And I usually open with this, you know. I mentioned before, I have a system, a strategy, a process that helps you get the highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles. Now, what I don't have is that magic 20% where it's you've lived in the home, you've raised kids, like you've had experiences. I want to get that language to plug into my system and strategy that's really going to help us connect with the buyers. Right, so I'm sort of mapping out this big thing of referencing that I do have a plan, and I like this idea of saying like, hey, I need 20% from you. Like, you're going to tell me stories that I'm going to use to help really connect with the buyers through that process. And I think that's an undersold thing. And that's why I don't call it a listing presentation. I call it a marketing strategy session, right? It's collaborative. It's not me presenting what I think. And when we bring the clients in, it's magic, right? So the next line, let's do this. Jen, let's do this. Give me a tour of the home. Take me through the home as if you're the agent and you're sort of selling me on the home, right? What happens then is you're invested, right? You're invested. You relax as the client, right? You've been in this situation before. Clients feel like they need to run the show. And referencing kids again, the moment you let them run the show, what happens, right? You never get back on track. This helps you as the agent settle in, right? The homeowner is now doing the thing. You get to settle in and take a breath. You don't have to jump into, you know, show mode. And also there's a lot of nuance that can happen in this. And to me, if you do this well, you've set the tone for the entire relationships of the transaction. So, you know, Jen, take me through the home, show me everything. I want to hear your words. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your stuff. And I always ask the question, hey, do you mind if I take some notes as we go along? You're going to say some great things and I want to remember those, right? And also, I like this little magic line for a couple of reasons. Do you mind if I take some photos? I mean, of course she's not going to mind. But I like to say this. I've already reached out to my photographer, and he is available next week, and I just want to give him some photos so he can start game planning, right? It's very assumptive, but it's intentionally assumptive. I say this very humbly. The moment somebody gives me the opportunity to do a listing presentation, that's my listing.
Right.
It's already my listing, and I think I'm not always that confident, but it's a hard confidence thing. But if we approach it that way, the client really does see like, well, you do have a system. Not only, you know, have you reached out to the photographer and all of that. Okay. I mean, worst case scenario, Jen turns to me and she's like, well, it's not your listing yet. And then I just like, yet? right? Hey, here's the thing. It's still part of the process. So take photos, and I do believe your photographer will love when you do that. So a couple magic things we do on the tour. Jen's taking me through. She's pointing stuff out. She's going through the home. When did you do this? You're unpacking a lot of the stuff that comes into the terms on the disclosures, and you're getting a lot of information. This little nuance too, I think, is interesting, right? There's something in the house. You're like, hey, this is fantastic. Whose decision was this? Right? And Jen's like, oh, I decided to do that. Man, what a great decision you made. I love this color. I mean, you should genuinely believe that that's the right thing, but also verifying, confirming those little nuance things. You decided to remodel, who chose the cabinets, right? You're tying back the emotional piece because they have a home and we need to transition that to a house so they can detach their emotions from it. And that's sort of a nice way to pay compliments. Of course, on the other side, this is what I call the Jake problem. Like, there's going to be like a light fixture or an unpainted wall or a giant hole or issues. Hey, what's our plan for this? Right? And I love to immediately bring yourself into that conversation. What's our plan? And Jen's going to be like, well, my husband didn't fix this, so I don't know. What is the plan? Right? You're like, hey, I've got a great guy for this. I already reached out to my handyman, let him know that I was going to have a listing appointment, that he's going to be ready. I'll connect you guys. He's got really great rates. I'm not going to pay for it, but I'm going to throw that out, that he's available, great rates. We'll bring him in later, and when we talk about the calendar and go through that. Again, I'm pre-closing this conversation. I've already thought of this. I've already thought of this. I've already thought of this. Every home is going to have, what's our plan for this? I always make reference to Hummel figurines, and I apologize if you collect Hummel figurines, but it's like when you have a whole bunch of them, you're like, what's our plan for this? What are we going to do with all these things? And we need to have a plan. I've got storage. I've got all of these options. And when we convey that to the client, they're like, man, you've already thought of all of this. We haven't even got to the stuff which I care about, the price. So it's going to be easy, right? That's part of this magic. So we tour the home. We go through the process. There needs to be a transition. All right, we want to close out that section and move to the next. Hey, is there anything else that you thought of that you want to share with me? Anything else you did? No, we're good. Here's where we segue the conversation and sort of do the next step tie down. Hey, did you have a chance to look through that stuff that I dropped off the other day? That preliminary marketing assessment. Did you have a chance to look at it? Did you have a chance to go through it? They're going to say one or two things, and honestly, it doesn't even matter which one they say. It gives us a decision to move forward into the next piece. Now, I know as well as you do that what they're going to be is like, I don't know where that went. And you're like, it's cool, I get it. You got a lot of stuff going on. But that tells you something, right? They didn't look at anything. Or they're going to be like, actually, I do have it right here. Great, right? How they give us that interaction gives us the next path to go through. In truth, the two paths aren't really that different, but it is that confirmation that they did or didn't look at the material. And here's the thing, if they lie to you or whatever, I'm cool with that idea. But asking that question sets up the piece for the next piece. So really, it's two different paths, right? We've got the mic drop pages on the left, and then on the right-hand side, we basically just have pages from our seller book, our preliminary marketing assessment, which these, by the way, are the 3 pages in the book that I usually make a note on when I drop off the book. I'm like, hey, if nothing else, just take a look at these 3 pages if you've got time. The mic drop pages on the left are sort of an easy way to walk through it, not looking at the seller book. So in my mind, if they're like, honestly, Jake, you dropped that off and I took it and I put it directly into the trash. I'm like, I get it. I understand. Let's do this. Give me about 10 minutes and I want to walk through the mindset of the buyer before we talk about my strategy, right? So I'm going down this path over here. They didn't look at anything. They don't know anything. They've maybe never sold a house before. They have no idea what they're doing. I'm going to start with these mic drop pages that are available and sort of walk through those, and I'll talk about that in a second. And if Jen's like, actually, I got the packet right here and I made a bunch of notes, I'm like, great. What questions do you have? I'm not even going to start the conversation. If you look through the book, you took time to go through it, I'm like, tell me all about what you have. And say like for a seller with a lot of those thoughts, I mean, you can imagine they have a lot of thoughts, right?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Not knowing what they don't know, it's our opportunity to find out where their fears are. And we already know highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles. Those are their go-to. So you're going to make this decision on which route to go through from the marketing side. And I'll talk about these mic drop pages for a second. But so again, these are the 3 pages in the list, preliminary marketing assessment, the seller book, whatever we call it. These 3 pages to me are really the core of accomplishing what we have, right? The listing tour video sheet talks about, what we do, the reach, the number of eyeballs we get your property in front of. Where buyers find homes talks about how the buyer mindset's going to work. And of course, that last piece on pricing matters, right? It's really the tie down to why the market determines the price on everything. I think you could have an entire presentation just with these 3 pages. Now, I want to include all the pages because we don't know what they don't know, but these 3 pages really set the tone in the book itself. Now, the mic drop pages, same mindset. And here's, I'll sort of focus in just for a second. One of the, I'll say mistakes, one of the missed opportunities we have is we talk a lot about what the seller wants and needs, which is absolutely important, and what they care about is price, the end. But what we don't talk enough about is how buyers work, what buyers think, what they want, what they need. Because truth be told, they're the ones that ultimately determine the price. They are the market. They set the tone. So I like to start with the mic drop page on the left, what buyers rely on during the home search process. Like, hey, Jen, before we get to price, I know that's the only number you're thinking right now, and it's painful that I'm delaying this process. But I think it's important before we determine the price of your home, or as I call it, the initial market position, that we talk about what buyers think and how buyers act and what they expect, right? So I'll go through this list and talk about, 96% want professional photos. Check, I do that. Detailed information about properties for sale. Check, we do that. Floor plans. Check, we do that. I'm going to go through the list, set the expectation for what buyers want, and make that same note. Now, the 12 ways our competitors market homes for sale is kind of the same idea, just presented from a different way. It's like, here's what buyers want. And weirdly, our competition, even though they know that buyers want this, only 80% or 86% of them do this. Only 61% do this. So you're sort of saying, here's what they expect, here's what everybody else does, and you can either write 100% on the KC agent side, or you can check it, whatever that looks like. But I like to go through that process. Now at the end, on both sides, it's like virtual open house and newspaper magazine. I may, at this point in the conversation, be like, hey, how do you feel about virtual open houses or newspaper magazine? And you would say something like, right, like, I don't know, do they work? I do like to give a little bit of a throwaway of, you're like, yeah, okay, we won't do that, right? But, 2% like that. So there's a little give and take in that process where there's some trade-off. I'm happy to do these things if they want, but the end result is confirming to the homeowner, like, hey, here's how buyers think and what they expect. They are the ones that are ultimately going to determine the price of the property. Practice these, walk through them, test each other out, role play, and sort of go through this process of being able to explain it. It's the hidden opportunity in the listing presentation that we don't frame the buyer's expectation enough. And I know I keep saying that, but the truth is we just don't. So there's another transition there. We finished the marketing conversation. So do you see how that strategy, my system, my process, helps you get the highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles? I mean, she could be like, no, I don't, right? Which is great, because
Fair,
it's like
but
the classic sales question, like, well, what part can we talk more about, right? We revisit that sales conversation. She says yes. Here's the great opportunity then to revisit these questions. Hey, did you happen to have those questions? She's like, no, threw them away along with everything else. I'm like, cool. let's talk about them right now. Or, yes, they're right here and I have some answers. Great, let's talk about them, right? If Jen's filled them out, my question is always this, tell me about your previous selling experience, and she write whatever she writes. My question is always this: tell me more about that. Unpack that. Give me more details, because everything she says is going to be either critical for me to do or critical for me to avoid, right?
It's a great way to start building that relationship with that seller, because you're saying you're interested in their previous experience and you're going to do it the way they want it done.
Yep. And if they're like, I don't like to be contacted too much, you're like, check. Not right or not enough, right? One of those two things. And to me, this is the transition tie down. Am I aware of everything that you need and want? So what's magic is when we get to present the initial market position, which again, I recognize that it may feel very painful to have delayed this process, but if you do it right, we're only about 30 minutes into our conversation, right? I filled up the time in 30 minutes easily, but it goes much quicker when you're in the presentation. And you're going to unpack this, which I'll reference our previous recording where I walk through not just how to put together the CMA, but how to actually present the CMA to your clients. I will continue to be a big fan of moving that laptop around and being like, hey, here's our properties. Let's go through this. So if you have questions about that, let us know. A couple quick things. I am I'm not avoiding the conversation of like, okay, when did they actually sign the contract? Like they would be doing that at this moment, right? They would sign the contract. We'll talk about a few other things, but in that piece, they're either gonna commit or not commit, and I'll visit some of those topics in a second. But when they do commit, or even if they don't, I think one thing we must do is establish timelines and create a checklist of actions moving forward. Like, let's say they're like, yes, we love your initial market position price, let's move forward. I am a firm believer that we have a sheet or a document where we've written down some things, and you can kind of work backwards. So if we're going to put the home on the market here, as I mentioned, I talked to my handyman here. He's available this date. I'd love to have, a housekeeper, cleaner, somebody come in. They're available this date. My painter's available. I love to map out a whole process because it does a couple things. And Jen, speaking of processes, and I love that, just even talking about the celebrations of it, that having those timelines gives everybody clarity.
It does, absolutely.
Right? All the little things you're like, Jake, you're responsible for this, and the timeline may or may not work. It's crucial for the sellers, because what happens is they sign something and then it's like, I don't know.
Right.
I just made a huge decision, but I have no idea what's next. Right? And when we talk about highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles, that's actually a hassle. The unknown aspect of what happens next. I want you to also have your own checklist. It's like, I'm going to work on the MLS description. I love to even have a document where it's like, hey, here's what I'm going to do. When I finish this, I'm going to shoot you a text and say, I checked it off. And I'm going to check it off on mine. So they've got like sort of a living document of progress and checks and balances and keeping sort of track of all of those things. So there's a lot of nuance there in this big process. The short answer is, I know it never goes as planned. Right. But as an administrator, you got to have a plan, right?
Right, you do.
When we wing it, it's only so good, and we miss that opportunity that, hopefully when I leave and Jen talks to her friends, like, so how'd that go with the agent? And Jen's like, honestly, Jake had a plan and he had thought through the whole thing, and it really alleviated a lot of my fears. Like, that's the big takeaway here, is we want them to tell that story of sort of our success. Next steps, you put together a fantastic office lesson plan, and I'm excited for this. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Tuesday with the brokers in your business meetings, we are going to talk about the thing that is probably the scariest part of doing a listing presentation, which is, what do you do if they have difficult questions or they don't like what you have to say.
Yeah.
So that is, it's called Overcoming Objections. And so it is a pretty time consuming lesson, but I think well worth it. And you'll walk away with some scripts and some, it's called objection karaoke.
Oh, I love it's great, right?
It is.
It's painful and it's awkward, but it's also so worth it.
Right? So you're not doing it in the office. It's just a resource that's available to you through Greenhouse. They have an app that you can go in and practice these. You know, Jake talked a lot about practicing some of these things. Well, you also have to practice how are you going to handle when they say no or when they don't like the price that you give them, or they don't want to do any of the upgrades that you've suggested, and that sort of thing. So we want to arm you with how to best handle those things so that you can win the listing.
Yeah, I hope everybody knows I don't live in a perfect world, and I understand that even if you do all of this stuff perfect, there's still going to be objections, because let's be honest, that is human nature. They could be like, I love everything about this, but I feel as a human, if I don't object to something, I'm not doing my job. Right. So it's almost, I think of it this way, and the sort of the lesson talks about that idea. Assume that there's going to be objections. Take as many as you can off the table beforehand, but that's just a human thing. There shouldn't be any animosity. So thank you for putting that together.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that. That is our time indeed. It's nice presenting next to you.
I know. We got to do it
we don't quite
today.
know how to figure this out. Normally I'm just staring at the camera. So thank you guys for being here. We appreciate all that you've been doing. We love doing these pieces. Let us know if you have questions, you want to dig into more content. And honestly, I would love to hear your strategies, systems, and sort of this is how I do my process. I love to take more input and always improve what I'm presenting to everyone else. So let us know. Thanks, Jen. You're awesome.
Well,
thank you, guys.
Jake.
See you soon.
Sorry about the recording.
Thank you.